Okay, let's unpack this. I mean, really unpack it. Imagine, just for a moment, a world before Adam. Who exactly was ruling people if anyone was even there before Adam came onto the scene?
It's a fascinating question, really old, and maybe a bit unexpected. We're diving deep into some pretty thought-provoking material today. Our mission, basically, is to explore two main ideas about how things might have been governed back then in this hypothetical pre-Adamite era, and also understand why this question even comes up, even if the answer turns out to be, well, maybe not what you'd expect.
Exactly. And it's important to frame this right. We're using it as a thought experiment, you see. The source material we're looking at doesn't actually say definitively, yes, there were people before Adam, but it uses that idea, this possibility, to explore some really deep concepts about governance, divine will, and consequence. It's more about what the question itself helps us understand. Right, and this is where it gets really interesting, I think. The whole spark for this pre-Adamite idea, it seems to come from these intriguing lines, Genesis 4.14.
Yeah.
After Cain kills Abel, his fear is palpable. He says, whoever finds me will kill me. And then there's the whole business of where his wife came from later on. I mean, if it wasn't other kids of Adam and Eve, then who were these people? Who was he worried about? Who did he marry? It kind of opens a door, doesn't it?
It really does. And one perspective our source dives into is this. If these pre-Adamite people existed, they might have been under Satan's rule, a kind of governance characterized by, well, the phrase used is survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
As it might be termed in some contexts.
Okay, wow. So picture that world. You might have intelligent beings, sure, but maybe no real resistance to sin. Perhaps lacking a conscience entirely, that internal compass telling you right from wrong. Our source sort of suggests that without that conscience, which implies, a law written on the heart, maybe they operated more like, well, just like animals is the phrase used, in that specific moral sense, pure instinct.
And this view goes further. It suggests their physical bodies might have already been subject to what the source calls fleshly desires. Think desires driven purely by physical impulse, not by spirit or morality. It paints this picture of a world where even the land itself might have shown signs of struggle, like thorns and thistles, which of course raises big questions. Was the land already cursed somehow? Did things like carnivorous animals exist before Adam's fall? Or could Satan's influence alone create that kind of chaotic environment?
So in that scenario, Adam arrives like a candle, as the source puts it, lit by God in this already dark, maybe oppressed world. He wasn't just another creature. He was intended as an uncursed being, meant to demonstrate God's commandments. A beacon of divine order introduced into a reality possibly already under sway. It's a different framing than just starting a family.
It's a powerful image, yeah. Now, the alternative view, if we look at that, it suggests something quite different. Because Adam was the first creature explicitly given legitimate authority, stewardship over the land by God. Then any people existing before him would have by default been under God's direct rule of commandments.
Okay, so that paints a very different world. A world presumably without those fleshly desires running wild, without the survival of the fittest dynamic dominating everything, because God's protection would have been there. But then why the need for Satan to tempt Adam later, if things were under God's rule already?
That's a really critical point. Because even in this scenario, God still needed to allow Satan to tempt Adam. It wasn't about God lacking control. The source argues it was essential to prove the truth of God's love and justice through Adam's free will. Satan acting, on his own volition, but within God's permitted framework for this greater purpose.
Okay, so we've got these two kind of contrasting hypothetical pictures of pre-Adamite rule, ruled by Satan or ruled directly by God's commandments. But here's where the deep dive takes a turn, right? Because the source seems to argue that, actually. Regardless of which of those was happening before Adam's arrival, and especially his choice, his fall, that changed everything universally.
That's really the crux of it. Adam's success or failure wasn't just personal. It was meant to determine the fate of all flesh. That term implying not just humans, but potentially all living things. His actions would ripple out and influence all nations. The consequences were designed to be truly universal in scope.
And the source ties Adam's significance really closely to something it calls the establishment of the cross in creation. Can you unpack that a bit? What's that connection mean here?
Sure. The idea presented is that God's ultimate purpose through Adam wasn't just about, say, populating the earth. It was about the completion of free will, and ultimately dealing with sin and death, eradicating them. So Adam's unique role, his value in this context, was fundamentally linked to setting the stage for the necessity and reality of ultimate redemption. foreshadowing it.
Okay, that's profound. But then, and this is maybe the surprising part, the source concludes something interesting. It says that because Adam was ultimately defeated by Satan, leading everyone eventually under Satan's rule, the initial question of who governed any hypothetical pre-Adamites becomes, in the end, kind of insignificant.
Right. Insignificant might sound strong, but the reasoning is logical within the framework. Since Adam's fall resulted in everyone coming under Satan's domain eventually, the starting condition becomes less critical than the outcome. That universal consequence of Adam's failure, plus the fact that the existence of pre-Adamites isn't definitively confirmed in the first place. It makes focusing too much on their specific governance less important than understanding Adam's absolutely pivotal universal impact.
So the real core takeaway for you listening today isn't necessarily about solving the pre-Adamite riddle. It's about grasping the sheer scale, the immense, far-reaching consequences of one individual's choices, Adam's choices, how they shaped the very nature of existence for everyone and everything that followed.
Precisely. It leaves you with a powerful thought, doesn't it? What does it mean for you personally to really consider the profound ripple effect? How a single pivotal decision can fundamentally alter the fabric, not just of a life or a community, but potentially an entire world. All flesh. Makes you think.